Thank you very much. So, Extinction Rebellion activists have targeted the London Underground this morning with disruption at 3 stations in East London. Have a look at this. This is footage taken and shared by commuters, and it shows activists on top of stations. That's on top of a train at Shadwell station, and you can see commuters dragging that individual off the roof of that train. That was actually at Canning Town. Police say arrests have already been made. Officers are working quickly to try and resume all the services. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, in a statement, has strongly condemned the protesters and called the illegal action extremely dangerous. This was the scene at Shadwell station earlier, where the protesters both on top of a train and stuck on the platform. And some commuters were engaging with the protesters, urging them to try other methods to raise attention instead. We're going to talk to Clare Farrell, who's right here. She's a spokesman for Extinction Rebellion. First, our correspondent Richard Lister is at Canning Town. Has it calmed down, Richard, or is it still going on?
Yeah, it's calmed down, Victoria. Things are running normally again, but really there were very dramatic scenes, as we've seen this morning, when these 2 protesters climbed on top of the train that had pulled into the Jubilee Line platform here at Canning Town. It was an above-ground situation. They weren't under the ground, so that made things a little easier for the protesters to get onto the top of the train. They unfurled a banner. They were up there for about 20 minutes or so, but in that time, as more people came onto the platform and commuters who were on the train got out, tension started to considerably rise, and people were throwing things at the protesters from the platform. They were shouting abuse at them. There were people jumping up trying to grab them by the legs, and eventually one person was able to grab one of the protesters by the leg and pull him off the train. Another commuter got on top of the train and chased the other protester along the roof of the train until eventually they were brought off as well. So there was considerable disruption, and once one of those protesters was on the ground, it looked as though some of the commuters were certainly abusing him verbally, but also were attacking him physically. And station staff were doing their best to try and calm things down. But it was a pretty ugly scene for a while, and I spoke to the young man who was filming and live streaming that incident for Extinction Rebellion. He describes himself as an independent journalist who was asked to film this by the organisation, and he says he too was attacked and was lying on the ground trying to protect himself for a good 20-25 seconds as people were kicking and punching him. So yeah, pretty ugly scenes here this morning at Canning Town, but things back to normal now.
Thank you. Let's talk to Clare Farrell then, a spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion. Good morning to you.
Morning.
This is dangerous. What are you playing at?
Well, the people who are in danger, as you can see, are the protesters there. The alarm, I believe, was probably pulled by the people on the train. It was a delay to a public transport network, but the people who've been harmed are the protesters who made themselves vulnerable by taking this act. And I think that people are doing this out of desperation because they understand that we are so very vulnerable to this situation.
If one of your members was injured in the course of a protest like that, you say it would be a price worth paying?
I'm not saying that. I didn't do the action, but I know that people have done these actions with absolute attention to make sure that the public are safe, and people who do them are willing to put themselves in those positions.
The public aren't safe, are they? I mean, if there's somebody on top of a tube train, the public are not safe.
Well, why not?
Well, how can they be? The train does not usually drive around with people on top of it.
But it's not going to move because they've pulled the alarm. So they've done this. They did a very similar action actually in April with the DLR train, with a man in his 80s sat on top of the DLR eating his sandwiches. That was peaceful, it was calm, it was non-violent. I would say that this has been exactly the same process that Extinction Rebellion activists have gone through. It's no different to that action. But what has happened, of course, is that the anger has ensued with the public. And, I mean, when people talk to us about civilisational collapse, which we all have heard this from many, many experts, I wonder what people think that civilisational collapse looks and feels like, because I don't think that it's going to be a calm situation for people to live through, and that's clearly what we're facing. The IMF, Mark Carney, you know, credible people. We're we don't have a fringe opinion here.
You've got a lot of support from people up and down the country. We've spoken to one commuter this morning who does support Extinction Rebellion, however, does not support that kind of protest because they think it's dangerous and it's disrupting people's lives too much and drawing in police officers who probably have better things to do.
Yeah, and we've been disrupting people now for nearly 2 weeks. This is what you do when you think that absolutely everything is at stake. You know, what would you do if you knew that your children were in a burning building? When you would break down the door, wouldn't you? It wouldn't be pretty. You wouldn't be able to do it in a way that everyone said, oh, that was nice and calm. It's not. It's an emergency. And we have seen no sense of the emergency in this country since the government admitted that there was one in May. And so zero action, zero recognition of the fact that we are facing a total disaster.
Sadiq Khan says the action is illegal, for a start, extremely dangerous, counterproductive and causing unacceptable disruption to Londoners who use public transport to get to work.
Yeah, we understand that. I mean, as I say, the tactics that we've chosen to use are peaceful, non-violent and disruptive. And that's exactly what these people have gone out and done today.
But they're illegal. I mean, he's urging you to protest peacefully and within the boundaries of the law.
The people who take our actions on our protests are willing and ready to be arrested. They face the consequences. They don't run away. They don't cover their faces. They don't try and get away with something. The point is these people are willing to put themselves out there in harm's way because we know that we're all in this grave, grave risk. And nobody, I don't think, is really engaging with emotionally what that really means.
Some are. Some politicians would say they absolutely are and would support wholeheartedly what you're doing. But right now, with these particular demonstrations, do you think someone is going to get hurt?
Well, I hope not. I mean, somebody has been hurt today. People have been kicked and punched on a train platform. You know, we understand that putting ourselves in these positions and putting ourselves out there as spokespeople is potentially dangerous for us, you know. But what else can we do, really? We've been out on the streets for 11 days. There has been no response from the government, apart from to put a Section 14 blanket ban on members of our group standing in any public space as 2 or more people as an assembly is now classed as illegal. You know, the police have arrested a 17-year-old the other day, stopped and searched and arrested him for carrying some stickers in his bag. So, you know, this is a very serious situation and we're seeing a serious response.
Thank you very much, Clare Farrell. Thank you. From Extinction Rebellion. Your views welcome. Send us an email, victoria@bbc.co.uk, and you can use the hashtag Victoria Live on Twitter. Boris Johnson.